2:14 in the morning, a dying gas station on the edge of Ridgefield, Texas. A tired trucker named David Hayes rolls in for fuel, faded denim jacket, grease-stained cap, exhausted eyes. Just another lonely driver, or so it seems. Two corrupt deputies see easy prey instead. They don't know his empty trailer hides 6 cameras, a federal wire, and a locked steel box built to end their careers. Tonight, the hunters are about to become the hunted, and nobody in Ridgefield will ever forget it. The night air along Route 87 was thick with heat and the smell of hot asphalt. Crickets buzzed in the ditch until the roar of a Peterbilt 389 tore through the silence. Behind the wheel sat David Hayes, broad shoulders, calloused hands, a faded denim jacket, and a cap pulled low over tired eyes. To anyone watching, he was just another long-haul driver finishing a brutal shift. He eased the rig into the cracked lot of Rusty's Travel Plaza, a run-down gas station on the edge of Ridgefield, Texas. Ridgefield wasn't just a small town. For 3 years, its police department had run a quiet criminal operation, stopping out-of-toners, manufacturing charges, and stealing cash under the cover of the law. They targeted the tired, the isolated, the ones nobody would believe. Nobody who passed through ever fought back. Nobody ever won. But David wasn't a trucker. He was a 15-year FBI veteran, and his trailer was empty except for a hidden satellite uplink. 6 microscopic cameras were built into the dashboard and vents. Every word, every footstep was streaming live to a command post 20 meters away, where Agent Richard Langdon and a team of prosecutors watched in silence, waiting. David shut off the engine. The silence that followed felt heavy, almost alive. He grabbed his thermos, climbed down from the cab, and stepped onto the oil-stained concrete. He swiped a fuel card and pushed the heavy nozzle into the tank, playing his part perfectly. Tired, alone, an easy target. Right on cue, a black and white cruiser with its headlights off rolled out of the darkness, tires crunching over broken glass, blocking his exit at a deliberate angle. The doors opened, 2 deputies stepped out, and the trap quietly began to close. Deputy Mitchell Reed climbed out first, heavyset, 40s, a flushed face, eyes gone dead to empathy. 20 years on the force, 14 excessive force complaints quietly erased. Behind him came Deputy Bradley Collins, 24, freshly shaved head, twitchy hands, hungry to prove he was as ruthless as his mentor. David didn't look at them. He kept his eyes on the fuel pump, watching the numbers climb, playing the role of a man who only wanted to get home. "Long night, boy," Reeds said, his drawl thick with condescension. He didn't say driver, he said boy, leaning on the word, drawing a line he intended to exploit. David turned his head slowly. "Just trying to get to Dallas, officer. Got a delivery window in the morning." Reed spat a stream of tobacco onto the concrete inches from David's boots. He rested a hand lazily on his sidearm. "Dallas is a long way from here. You're a long way from home too, judging by those New Mexico plates. What are you hauling?" "Empty trailer," David said evenly. "Dead heading back to the depot." Collins had already unclipped his flashlight and was circling the trailer, banging his fist against the aluminum panels. "Hey, Mitch," he called out. "Cracked taillight housing back here. Defective equipment." David knew the taillight was flawless. FBI mechanics had inspected every inch of the truck before deployment. But he said nothing. That wasn't the play. "Is that so?" Reed smirked, stepping closer, invading David's space, the smell of stale coffee rolling off him. "Operating an unsafe commercial vehicle on my county roads. That's a real problem. Let me see your license, registration, logbook, and bill of lading, now." David reached slowly into his back pocket, telegraphing every movement, and handed over a stack of flawlessly forged documents. Reed snatched them without even glancing down. He was staring at David's face instead, searching for fear. "You look nervous, driver," Reed said softly. "I'm not nervous, sir, just tired." Back in the command post, Agent Langdon watched David's pulse on a live biometric feed, 65 beats per minute, steady as stone. "I think you're lying to me," Reed said, stepping so close his badge nearly scraped David's chest. "I think you're running something through my town. We get a lot of your kind pushing product up this corridor. Or maybe you're moving cash for somebody. Is that it? I already told you, the trailer is empty. Then you won't mind if we take a look inside the cab." Reed stepped past him toward the driver's door. "Actually, officer," David said, pivoting to block his path, "I do mind. I don't consent to a search of my vehicle. You wrote me up for a taillight. Issue the citation, and I'll be on my way." The mood shattered instantly. The lazy mockery evaporated, replaced by something colder. Collins came sprinting around the truck, his hand dropping to his taser. "What did you just say to him?" "I said I know my rights," David replied, standing his ground. "You have no probable cause to search my cab." Reed let out a dry, barking laugh. "He knows his rights, Brad. We got a roadside lawyer here." Then his arm shot out. He grabbed a fistful of David's jacket and shoved him back with brutal force. David let himself be pushed, his spine slamming against the steel fuel pump. Before he could steady himself, Collins was on him, wrenching his arm behind his back and pressing his face against the cold aluminum of the trailer. Stop resisting, Collins shouted, the rehearsed script of a man building his own alibi. "I'm not resisting," David said. Calm despite the pain screaming through his shoulder, the cuffs clicked shut, biting into his wrists. Reed leaned in close, his breath hot against David's ear. "You're under arrest for interfering with a police investigation and resisting arrest. Now you're going to stand right here, keep your mouth shut, and watch us tear your rig apart. Say one word, and I'll have Collins bounce your skull off the pavement. Understand?" David didn't answer. He let his eyes drift upward, meeting the tiny lens hidden in the side mirror housing. Got him, he thought. Federal civil rights violation. False arrest. Assault under color of law. But the Bureau didn't just want Reed and Collins. They wanted the whole department, and to get it, they needed to watch them take the bait. "Keep an eye on him," Reed ordered. Hauling himself up into the cab, from where David was pinned, he heard the destruction begin. Drawers ripped open. The mattress flipped in the sleeper berth. His duffel bag emptied violently onto the seat. Nothing in the bags. Reed called out. "Check under the bunk," Collins yelled back, his knee grinding into David's spine. "That's where these guys hide their lockboxes." Inside the cab, the hidden cameras caught every second of the illegal search in perfect clarity. Reed stripped the blankets, kicked away the mini fridge, and tore up the rubber matting beneath the sleeping area. Then he froze. A wicked grin spread across his face. Bolted to the steel chassis was a heavy matte black biometric lockbox, roughly the size of a briefcase, its hinges reinforced. To a man like Reed, a box like that could only mean one thing: cash, untraceable. The kind of payday nobody would ever report stolen. Reed scrambled out of the cab, his face flushed with greed, and marched straight up to David. Well, he sneered. "What do we have hidden under the bed, driver? Looks like a heavy-duty safe." "It's personal property," David said, playing the panic perfectly. "You have no right to look in there. I want a lawyer." Collins laughed, pressing his knee harder into David's back. "A lawyer? You think a lawyer's coming out to Route 87 at 2 in the morning? It's just us out here, boy. We know what's in the box," Reed said, dropping his voice, trying to sound reasonable. "Let's make a deal. You open it. If it's cash, we take it under suspicion of trafficking and we let you walk. No arrest, no charges. You go home to your family. You don't open it, you're going to county jail, and I promise you won't survive the weekend in there." It was extortion. Clear. Undeniable. Textbook. In the command post, Langdon was already drafting the indictments. "I don't have the key," David lied, playing the terrified civilian to perfection. "It's a company truck. The box belongs to the dispatcher." "Bull," Reed spat, turning toward the cruiser. "Brad, get the crowbar." Collins jogged eagerly to the trunk and came back carrying a 3-foot iron pry bar. "You really don't want to do this," David said quietly. His voice had changed, steady, deep, no longer frightened. "I'm telling you for your own sake, do not open that box." Reed paused, catching the shift. For one flickering second, doubt crossed his face. Then the thought of $50,000 in stolen cash washed it away completely. "Watch me," he grunted, grabbing the crowbar and climbing back into the cab. The gas station lights buzzed overhead, throwing pale yellow halos across the cracked pavement. Somewhere beyond the tree line, an owl called once and went silent, as if even the wildlife sensed something was about to break the stillness of the night for good. Through the open door, David watched Reed climb over the lockbox, wedging the forked end of the crowbar under the steel lid beside the electronic keypad. He braced his boots against the cabinetry and threw his full weight into the bar. Creak, the reinforced steel groaned. Reed was sweating now, grunting with effort. He pulled back and slammed the bar in again, deeper this time, wedging it against the locking mechanism. "Come on, you piece of garbage," he muttered. Pushing down with everything he had, with a deafening snap of shearing metal, the locking pins gave way. The lid burst open, bouncing against the wall of the sleeper berth. Reed tossed the crowbar aside, a triumphant laugh escaping his throat. "Got it, Brad? I got it open. How much is in there, Mitch?" Collins yelled from the pavement, bouncing on his heels. Reed didn't answer. 10 long seconds passed. Nothing but the hum of the diesel pump and the chirp of crickets in the ditch. "Mitch?" Collins called again, his grin faltering. "What is it? Is it drugs?" Slowly, Deputy Mitchell Reed backed out of the cab. He wasn't smiling anymore. All the blood had drained from his face, leaving him pale, almost gray. His hands trembled so violently he had to grip the door handle just to stay upright. In his right hand, he clutched something pulled from the box. It wasn't stacks of $100 bills. It wasn't bricks of cocaine. It was a sleek, black, leather credentials wallet, flipped open to reveal a heavy gold badge and a laminated photo ID. Below the seal of the United States Department of Justice, in bold letters, it read, "Federal Bureau of Investigation, Supervisory Special Agent David Hayes." Beside the badge, still resting inside the metal box, sat a stack of freshly printed federal indictments. Printed on top, in bold ink, were 2 names, Mitchell Reed and Bradley Collins. Reed stood frozen on the step of the cab, staring at the badge in his trembling hand. His breathing stopped completely. The arrogant sneer that had defined his entire career was gone now, replaced by the hollow, wide-eyed stare of a man watching his life evaporate in real time. Slowly, he lowered his gaze, past the badge, down to the black truck driver handcuffed against the side of the rig. David pushed himself off the trailer and turned to face them. He didn't look tired anymore. Every trace of the weary, defeated driver was gone. He looked like a predator that had just watched its trap snap shut, patient and utterly certain. "Like I said, gentlemen," David said softly, his eyes locked on Reed's face. "You really didn't want to open that box." The Texas humidity suddenly felt ice cold. Down on the pavement, Collins still couldn't see the badge. He was vibrating with nervous energy, completely unaware of the shift that had just torn through reality. "Mitch, come on, man." "What is it?" he barked, stepping toward the cab, his hand still resting on his taser. "Is it cash? Tell me it's cash." Reed swallowed hard, a sound like sandpaper scraping together. He couldn't tear his eyes off David. "Brad," he croaked, his voice barely a whisper. "Take the cuffs off him." Collins stopped dead, his face twisting in confusion. "What? Are you out of your mind? He's a suspect. What did you find in the box?" David leaned comfortably against the trailer. Despite his hand still bound tight behind his back, the performance was over. The hunted had become the hunter, and the air itself seemed to crackle with his sudden authority. "He found a mirror, Brad," David said, his voice ringing with terrifying calm, "and he's looking at 20 years in a federal penitentiary." David tilted his head slightly, speaking clearly into the empty air, his words aimed at the microscopic microphone woven into his collar. "Langdon, the trap is sprung. Lockbox breached. Move in." Collins blinked, looking wildly around the empty gas station. "Who are you talking to? Hey, shut your mouth." He never finished the sentence. From the pitch-black darkness of Route 87, a low mechanical thunder began to build. It didn't come from one direction. It came from everywhere at once, rising out of the night like the whole town was closing in. Within 3 seconds, the silence of Rusty's Travel Plaza was shattered completely. A massive armored tactical vehicle crashed through the overgrown brush at the rear of the lot, its floodlights blinding both deputies instantly. From the highway, 4 unmarked black SUVs roared into the station, tires screaming as they boxed in the lone police cruiser, cutting off every possible line of escape. Red and blue strobes erupted from every direction, painting the decaying gas station in a chaotic wash of federal light. Overhead, the heavy beat of a helicopter shattered the night sky, its rotors thumping like a second heartbeat over the whole scene. and a blinding spotlight punched down through the humid air, pinning Reed and Collins in an inescapable circle of light. "FBI, drop your weapons. Get on the ground." The command boomed from a megaphone, echoing off the metal canopy and rolling out across the empty highway. Before Collins could even process it, doors flew open and more than 24 heavily armed federal agents in tactical gear and Kevlar vests swarmed the lot, moving with the practiced precision of a team that had rehearsed this exact moment 100 times. "Don't do it, Brad," David warned softly, noticing Collins's hand twitch toward his holster in panic. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "It's over." Collins slowly raised his hands, his knees knocking together, completely overwhelmed. An agent tackled him to the pavement, stripping his weapon and replacing the department-issued cuffs with federal steel. Special Agent Richard Langdon, tall and sharp-featured in a tailored windbreaker, stepped out of the lead vehicle. He didn't so much as glance at the deputies. He walked straight to David, pulling a handcuff key from his pocket. "You good, Dave?" "Just a little shoulder strain, Rich," David said, rubbing his wrists as the cuffs fell away, rolling his shoulders to get the blood flowing again. He pulled on the jacket handed to him by another agent. "They gave us everything we needed. Extortion, illegal search, false imprisonment, destruction of property." Langdon turned toward Reed, who was being pressed against the hood of his own cruiser, his wrists bound in cold steel for the first time in his career. "Deputy Reed," he said, his voice dripping with disgust, "you have the right to remain silent. I highly suggest you use it. Everything you said and did tonight is already sitting on a secure server in Washington." Reed looked at David, his face a mask of devastation, all the swagger drained out of him completely. "You set us up. You set us up." "No, Mitchell," David said, walking over and leaning down until he was eye level with the broken deputy. "I didn't set you up. I just gave you a blank canvas. You painted your own conviction." Around them, agents moved with quiet efficiency, photographing the shattered lockbox, bagging the crowbar as evidence, cataloging every torn seat cushion and broken drawer in David's ransacked cab. What had once been a lonely, forgotten gas station now looked like a small battlefield lit up in red, blue and white. Reed sat slumped against his own cruiser, staring blankly at the pavement, while Collins wept quietly a few feet away, finally understanding exactly how far he had fallen in a single night. The sting at Rusty's Travel Plaza was only the spark. By sunrise, the fire would consume the entire town of Ridgefield. And nobody, from the police chief to the man in the black robe who had protected them all for years, would be spared. The sting operation at Rusty's Travel Plaza was merely the spark. By 6 the next morning, the fire had consumed the entire town of Ridgefield. The FBI had never wanted just 2 rogue deputies. For 3 years, they had been building a comprehensive racketeering case against the whole municipality, and now, with Reed and Collins caught on camera in the act of extortion, they finally had everything they needed to drop the hammer. Leading the charge was Sarah, a relentless and deeply ambitious assistant United States attorney, who had spent 2 years quietly building the paper trail no one in Ridgefield knew existed. While David had been out playing the bait, driving lonely highways and absorbing insults from corrupt cops, Sarah had been tracking the money. Bank by bank, shell company by shell company. She had traced exactly where the millions of dollars in stolen civil asset forfeitures had gone. It hadn't funded new patrol cars or community programs. It had vanished into offshore accounts and real estate holdings scattered across 3 states, wearing names that belonged to nobody who actually lived in Ridgefield. Stara had built her case the slow, unglamorous way, subpoenaing bank records, cross-referencing court dockets, and interviewing dozens of former drivers who had been too frightened to speak up, while Ridgefield's police still ruled the highway. Many of them had assumed nothing would ever come of their complaints. One woman, a nurse driving home from a night shift, had lost $1,100 in cash to a routine stop 2 years earlier and never saw a dime of it again. A young father hauling furniture for a moving company had spent 3 nights in the Ridgefield jail on a charge that vanished the moment he threatened to hire a lawyer. Sarah collected every one of these stories, cross-checked them against Reed and Collins's arrest logs, and built a pattern so clear that even the most skeptical judge in Washington couldn't ignore it. By the time David rolled his Peterbilt into Rusty's Travel Plaza that night, her case file was already thick enough to bury the entire department. All she needed was one more clean arrest, caught on camera, to tie it all together, and Reed and Collins had given her exactly that. As the sun rose golden over the flat Texas horizon, a coordinated sweep began across town, timed to the minute. Heavily armed FBI agents kicked in the front door of Police Chief Stanton's sprawling estate, a house far too large for any honest salary to explain. Stanton, a man who had ruled Ridgefield with an iron fist for a decade, was dragged out of his home in silk pajamas, screaming about jurisdictional overreach, while news helicopters circled above his manicured lawn, capturing every second for the morning broadcast. Sarah had tied Stanton directly to a slush fund built entirely from the highway robberies his own officers had carried out for years, each deposit traceable, each transfer documented, each excuse he might offer already anticipated and dismantled in advance. But the biggest twist of the morning was still waiting at the county courthouse. For years, the Ridgefield police had relied on a corrupt legal system to rubber stamp their illegal warrants and quietly bury the complaints filed by their victims. The linchpin of that entire system was District Court Judge Arthur Pendleton, a well-respected figure across the state, a man who gave public speeches on law and order while privately taking a 20% cut of every dollar stolen along Route 87. He had signed off on falsified warrants without reading them. He had dismissed civil rights complaints without a hearing. He had built a reputation on integrity while quietly profiting from its complete absence. When David Hayes and Agent Langdon walked into Judge Pendleton's private chambers at 8:15 that morning, the judge was calmly sipping his espresso, entirely unaware that his world was about to end before he finished his cup. "Agents, what is the meaning of this interruption?" Pendleton demanded, his face flushing red with practiced indignation, the same tone he might have used on a lawyer who'd shown up late to his courtroom. David didn't say a word. He simply placed a heavy leather-bound folder on the judge's polished mahogany desk. It contained wiretap transcripts recorded over 18 months, detailed banking records tracing every illicit transfer, and a sworn, signed confession from Deputy Mitchell Reed, who had flipped on his superiors the moment he was placed inside a federal interrogation room, desperate for any leniency he could find. "Arthur Pendleton," Langdon said coldly, stepping around the desk and slapping handcuffs on the judge's wrists right across his own bench. "You are under arrest for federal racketeering, wire fraud, and conspiracy to violate civil rights." Pendleton's espresso cup slipped from his fingers and shattered against the hardwood floor, dark liquid spreading in a slow stain across the polished boards, the last mess he would ever leave for someone else to clean up. As agents led him out through the same courthouse hallways where he had once delivered sweeping speeches on justice and accountability, clerks and bailiffs who had worked under him for years watched in stunned silence. Unable to reconcile the man in handcuffs with the judge they thought they knew, within 48 hours, the Ridgefield Police Department was effectively dissolved by the Department of Justice. State police had to be brought in just to patrol the streets, because nearly 80% of the local force had been indicted on charges ranging from extortion to obstruction of justice. Patrol cars sat abandoned in the department parking lot, their radios silent, their once feared authority reduced to evidence tags and case numbers. The millions in stolen cash were seized by the federal government, and Sarah initiated a sweeping legal effort to return the stolen funds to the hundreds of innocent drivers who had been victimized over the years. Truckers, families on road trips, delivery drivers, anyone who had made the mistake of passing through Ridgefield on the wrong night. Letters went out across the country, some to addresses that no longer existed, others to people who had long since given up hope that anyone would ever believe them. For many, it was the first time in years that the system had actually worked in their favor. Bradley Collins, The young deputy, who had once dreamed of being just as feared as his mentor, took a plea deal within a week, testifying against Reed, Stanton, and Pendleton in exchange for a reduced sentence. He would spend 6 years in a federal facility far from Ridgefield, stripped of his badge, his pension, and the reputation he had once been so desperate to build through cruelty. Reed showed no such cooperation at first, clinging to a defense that unraveled within days under the weight of the evidence against him. In the end, facing decades behind bars, he too broke, offering testimony that helped seal Chief Stanton's fate for good. The town itself changed almost overnight. Local news anchors who had once praised Ridgefield's tough on crime reputation now reported live from outside the boarded-up police station, describing a department that had operated more like an organized crime syndicate than a public safety agency. Residents who had quietly suspected corruption for years finally spoke openly, some for the first time, describing years of fear dressed up as law enforcement. A community meeting held at the local high school gymnasium drew hundreds of people, many of them holding old citations and impound receipts they had kept for years, hoping someone would finally listen. Sarah stood before them that night, promising that every dollar unjustly taken would be traced and returned, and that Ridgefield would rebuild its police force from the ground up with real oversight this time. A week later, once the last of the paperwork had been filed and the town had begun, cautiously, to breathe again, David Hayes was back in the driver's seat of the Peterbilt 389. The fake New Mexico plates were gone, replaced by a fresh set of covers for the next assignment. The dent in the side panel, left behind when Collins had slammed him against the trailer, was still there, a small, permanent reminder of the night everything changed. David hadn't bothered to have it fixed. In some strange way, he had grown to like it. Aged Langdon climbed onto the passenger side step, handing David a fresh cup of black coffee through the open window, steam curling up into the cool morning air. "You ready for the next one, Dave?" David took the cup, wrapping his fingers around its warmth. "What have we got?" "Intel says there's a sheriff in Louisiana running a speed trap racket that makes Ridgefield look like amateur hour," Langdon said, a faint, tired smile crossing his face. Same pattern, different state, different badge, same greed underneath it. David took a slow sip of the scalding coffee, letting the bitterness settle before he answered. His eyes drifted across the horizon, past the gas pumps, past the cracked lot of Rusty's Travel Plaza, now quiet and empty in the early light, its part in the story already finished. Somewhere behind him, agents were still finishing paperwork on the Ridgefield case. Statements, evidence logs, the long tail of bureaucracy that always followed the adrenaline of a night like the one they'd just lived through. But David's mind had already moved on. There was always another town, always another lonely highway, always another badge worn by someone who had forgotten what it was supposed to protect. He adjusted his grease-stained baseball cap, the same one he'd worn the night Reed had first called him boy, and gave Langdon a subtle nod. "Trailer's empty, Rich," David said, a faint smile finally breaking through his usual composure as he settled into the driver's seat and put the massive rig into gear. "Let's go for a drive." The Peterbilt's engine roared to life beneath him, the same low thunder that had once masked a federal wiretap and would soon carry him toward another town that thought nobody was watching. Behind him, the sun climbed fully over Ridgefield, Texas, lighting up a town finally free of the men who had spent a decade turning its highways into a hunting ground. Ahead of him lay Louisiana, and another gas station somewhere on a dark road where another corrupt badge was about to make the same fatal mistake, mistaking exhaustion for weakness and a quiet man in a denim jacket for easy prey. 6 months later, the town of Ridgefield looked almost unrecognizable. A newly appointed police chief, brought in from outside the county specifically because he had no ties to the old regime, walked the same streets Stanton once ruled. This time with body cameras, independent oversight, and a hotline that actually led somewhere when someone called to report abuse. The old station had been gutted and rebuilt. Even Rusty's Travel Plaza had a fresh coat of paint on its sagging canopy. As if the whole town had quietly decided to shed its old skin, Sarah's office finished returning the last of the stolen funds that spring, mailing checks to families who had almost forgotten they were owed anything at all. The nurse who had lost $1,100 2 years earlier received her money back with a formal letter of apology from the Department of Justice, something she kept framed on her kitchen wall long after the check had been deposited. The young father, who had spent 3 nights in the Ridgefield jail, used his settlement to help cover his daughter's first semester of college, a small, quiet kind of justice that never made the evening news but mattered just as much as the headlines had. Judge Arthur Pendleton pleaded guilty rather than face trial, accepting 18 years in federal prison in exchange for cooperation that helped convict 2 other corrupt judges in neighboring counties, men who had built the same rotten system on a smaller scale. Chief Stanton fought the charges to the very end, insisting through 3 separate attorneys that he was simply a man who had trusted the wrong people. The jury took less than 4 hours to disagree, and he was sentenced to 22 years, the estate he'd built with stolen money seized and auctioned off, its proceeds folded into the fund Sarah had created for Ridgefield's victims. Mitchell Reed, the man who had once called David boy, in a parking lot at 2 in the morning, received 12 years after his cooperation shortened what could have been a much longer sentence. In his final statement to the court, he said little beyond a quiet admission that he had stopped seeing the people he pulled over as people a long time before that night at Rusty's. It wasn't an excuse. Nobody in the courtroom treated it as one. But for a man who had spent 2 decades hiding behind a badge, it was the first honest thing he had said in years. For David Hayes, Ridgefield became one case file among many, filed away in a growing collection that lived somewhere between memory and evidence storage. He didn't dwell on the details for long. There wasn't time. The job never really stopped, and neither did he. Somewhere on a dark Louisiana highway, months later, the same Peterbilt 389 rolled to a stop outside a lonely gas station, its paint slightly more weathered, its dent still there on the side panel, like an old scar that had never quite faded. David climbed down from the cab in his faded denim jacket and grease-stained cap, looking every bit as tired as he had that night on Route 87. In the shadows across the lot, a sheriff's cruiser sat waiting, engine running, headlights dark, exactly the way Reed's had once waited for him. David didn't flinch. He'd done this before. He knew exactly how it would end. He swiped his fuel card, pushed the nozzle into the tank, and let his eyes drift toward the darkened cruiser with the same quiet patience that had once brought down an entire town. Somewhere behind him, a hidden camera in the mirror housing caught every second, streaming it to another command post, another Agent Langdon, another Sarah waiting to build another case. The engine of the cruiser rumbled to life. Headlights snapped on, slicing through the dark. The door opened. David allowed himself the faintest smile, the kind only a man who had done this a dozen times before could manage. He reached for his thermos, leaned back against the trailer, and waited for the first insult to come his way. Some men wear a badge to hide who they really are. David Hayes wore a disguise to reveal exactly who they were. One dark highway, one gas station, one corrupt badge at a time. And as long as there were towns like Ridgefield hiding behind a thin blue line of stolen power, David would keep rolling down the highway, ready for whatever came next.